Welcome and good afternoon, everyone, to APNM and APV's webinar, New Year, New Action for Animals. I'm Dorothee Hutchinson. I'm the Chief Development Officer for APNM. And with me today is my co-host, Paige Ryan. She's APV's Government Affairs Manager. She will be monitoring the chat throughout the session, and I wanted to thank you, Paige, for doing that.
Thank you, Brenda.
We thank you all for being here today and for your interest in hearing from our team about the latest news and the hot topics in New Mexico, from saving homeless horses to addressing some of the cruelest forms of animal abuse, to the long battle to release suffering laboratory chimpanzees to sanctuary, and actions you can take to make a difference. And of course, at the end of our presentation, we will have time for your questions. And with that, right here, I'm excited to introduce you all to our wonderful speakers. Today we have Noelle Callahan. She's the Chief Program and Policy Officer for APNM and APV. Utilizing her skills in bringing diverse people together for a good cause, she worked to help end the use of chimpanzees in invasive biomedical research, and she now leads our Securing Sanctuary for Chimpanzees campaign. She also serves as our lead federal lobbyist, as she's conveniently and strategically located in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Noelle. Jessica Johnson is our Chief Government Affairs Officer and leads animal protection voters lobbying efforts at the state level, bringing a decade of experience in legislative advocacy and a law degree specializing in environmental and animal law. Her strategic work was critical to the passage of recent bills to ban coyote killing contests, establish statewide spay and neuter funding, and prohibit traps, snares, and poisons on public land. Welcome, Jessica. Paige Ryan has recently joined Jessica's team by stepping into the role of Government Affairs Manager for APNM and APV. With a background in media production, international business development, and fundraising, Paige most recently helped to operate APNM's statewide animal cruelty hotline and assisted with the Chimpanzee Sanctuary campaign. And some of you may also recognize her as our fearless grassroots organizer and steward of our powerful volunteer program. Welcome again, Paige. And we also have two very special guests from the New Mexico State Legislature who are joining us today. We have Senator Brenda McKenna, who was selected to the State Senate in 2020 and earned a 100% animal protection voter score in her very first legislative session last year. Congratulations. She came to the Senate after years of work as a community advocate on behalf of wildlife protection, including Roxy's Law to ban traps on public land, a bill that she went on to co-sponsor as a senator in 2021. She also continues to lead legislation to establish a more humane, responsible approach to protecting New Mexico's wild horse herds at the same time as protecting habitat and community safety. And we have with us Representative Kristina Ortez. Welcome, Kristina, who was selected to the State House of Representatives in 2020 and also earned a 100% animal protection voter score in her first legislative session last year. Way to go. With a rich background as a community leader in water and land issues, she has become a leading voice in the House for conservation values and finding opportunities that simultaneously benefit animals and local communities. She has played a key role in last year's substantial appropriation of state funding to help horse rescues and is preparing to champion legislation to transition New Mexico to a cage-free egg future.
Thanks so much for the introductions, Dorothee. So we just wanted to kind of briefly share that we have APV is essentially the legislative arm of APNM. So APNM has been around about 40 years, APV is more recent, and that really supports our legislative efforts. I won't read through this whole slide here. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about chimps. So APNM has been working for decades to free chimpanzees on Holloman Air Force Base. And here you'll see kind of a brief history. I'm not going to read through all of this for you, but just so you have an idea of how long this has been going on Holloman Air Force Base, and some of these victories and also challenges. So in the 1950s is when the Air Force brought chimps to the Air Force Base. All of those chimps were stolen from the wild, from their families. In the 80s, there was a massive campaign to breed chimpanzees for the use of HIV and AIDS research. And then scientists ultimately decided that they weren't a good model and that they were very expensive to keep as a research model. In 2000, the Chimp Act passed, which created the federal sanctuary system, and that's Chimp Haven in Louisiana. And then in 2010 was pivotal as APNM had to work with lawmakers to pause the transfer of chimps that were being moved from Alamogordo to a Texas facility. And that really started this ball rolling with a few other, decisions that came after that. In 2011, there was a groundbreaking report from the Institute of Medicine saying chimps are basically unnecessary for research. Following that, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service said that all chimpanzees should be protected. Previously, lab chimps were left out of that protection that other chimps as an endangered species received. And that same year in 2015, the NIH announced they would no longer financially support the use of chimpanzees, and that all of them would go to sanctuary, which we were all thrilled to hear. There were a few years where a lot of chimps went to sanctuary, including 94 of the Alamogordo chimpanzees. And that is really a huge victory. And I have to remind myself here occasionally, as we're still working to push chimps to get to sanctuary, that we already did get a lot of chimps to sanctuary. And Ham here is photoed. This is a picture right after his space flight. So he was one of the first chimps. That's what we call a fear grimace. So if you read in the news, they might say, oh, look how happy he looks. He's terrified here. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, in 2019, we're going to show a quick video, but 2019, NIH decided that they were not going to send the surviving chimps to sanctuary. So that's where we kind of pick up on this recent push.
Over the years, hundreds of chimpanzees were forced to serve this country, from spaceflight testing to medical research. Finally, in 2015, a landmark decision put an end to the wasteful and inefficient use of these intelligent, sensitive, endangered animals for invasive testing. More than 460 chimps have now reached the National Chimpanzee Sanctuary, but not all of them were so lucky. Right now, there are fewer than 40 chimps languishing in a costly lab on Holloman Air Force Base. Funded with your tax dollars, these are the forgotten chimps of Alamogordo. They have served and suffered for this country, and they deserve better. Now, because of government bureaucracy, these last surviving chimps remain abandoned without the expert care they need, and they face rushed deaths by euthanasia. Help us free these forgotten laboratory chimps. Let them live out the rest of their lives in sanctuary, in a natural environment with friends and family. Take action now. Visit ForgottenChimps.org and add your voice to the effort to give our closest relatives the dignity, safety, and care they deserve. Act now. Visit ForgottenChimps.org.
I haven't watched that full video for a while, and I forgot how emotional I get. So I apologize for that if you can hear that in my voice. So there are 35 chimps currently on the Air Force Base. We have not forgotten them, and we won't. We'll continue to fight for all of them until there's no one left there. And we've been really fortunate. We have some great chimp champions in the House and Senate, but I just kind of wanted to feature a few here. Everyone knows Senator Lujan, Tammy Duckworth, who's in Illinois. You might say, well, why is she helping? Well, she heard from so many constituents about the NIH decision in 2019 that she got involved, and she's been fantastic. She's on the Armed Services Committee, which is very helpful as far as, you know, helping with the Air Force kind of angle of it. And she even led an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act this last year. Senators Cassidy and Kennedy, they're both in Louisiana. So it's great to have them on board. They represent Chimp Haven, which is there in Keithville, Louisiana. And we just recently kind of got Kennedy on board. He sent a very compelling letter to Dr. Collins at NIH. So they've been really terrific to work with. We can go ahead to the next slide. So just a couple things. We're going to talk a little bit more about this at the end, but specifically chimp related. You can go to that forgottenchimps.org. That video is there, so people can go there, get more information, and then through that, you can send a message to your senators and representatives. If you want to send a letter or call an office, you can go find out who your federal representative is in the House of Representatives by clicking on that, using that second link here, and you just put in your zip code and it tells you who they are and gives you their contact info. And then you can also sign up for email alerts. So you're getting updates. You know, we might have something coming up where we could use your help in the next month or so. So if you're on that list, then you'll get that information. And I wanted to share just real quick. So this is Joellen, who was transferred to Chimp Haven in 2017. And you can see she looks like a pretty happy chimp. So that's what we're really working towards for all of the chimps left at the facility on Holloman. And, you know, we really appreciate your support, and feel free to reach out to me if I can answer any questions or help in any way if you're contacting your legislators. I think that's the last slide for me. Back to Jessica.
Thank you, Noelle, for that that highlight on our federal work. And you know, and I will just add, and perhaps in the Q&A, Noelle can illuminate a little bit more. But we highlighted Senator Lujan. There are, of course, others in the New Mexico delegation that have helped a little bit, and we will take all the help that we can get on this issue. But Senator Heinrich has been helpful. Representative Melanie Stansbury has also committed to being helpful. And it's just sort of, you know, we're trying to see what we can make happen over the next year to get those final chimps to sanctuary. So with that, we're going to move to talking about some of the state legislative work. And I want to thank our two special guests so much for patiently waiting on the panel. And I think everyone would love to hear from the two of you, maybe a little bit about, you know, what it is about animal issues that inspires you to take leadership on these issues, and maybe also talk about how important it is for legislators like yourselves to hear from constituents like our supporters about the issues that they care about. So I don't know who wants to go first. I'll volunteer Representative Ortez because she's giving me a very excited face.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, everyone who is here today. I'm so appreciative of your activism. I think that's might be the answer to the second question, but I want to tell you why I care. And I think a huge part of it is rooted in what we just saw. You know, I was super emotional. I was like trying not to cry, and I was like, why am I trying not to cry? This is a crowd that would be appreciative of being moved to tears by the actions of our federal government and our state government in many cases. So I think that I was so moved because, you know, I'm just because of who I am, but also I'm thinking about my children who would be outraged that we treat our fellow beings this way. And I think as you get older, some start accepting that it's okay, right? But our children don't accept that. And I want to hold on to that that sense of wonder and sense of grace and connection that our children have with the animal world, and that's something that really moves me. I am the proud. I don't know if I'm so much a parent to my feline relatives, or as just a, you know, as a caregiver and someone who does exactly what they want, which is all the time. So I have two beautiful kitty cats that I got from Stray Hearts here in Taos. I am really grateful that they are a part of our family. They bring me much joy. I was a proud vote on Roxy's Law. I'm so glad that we were able to push that across the finish line. Thank you, Senator McKenna, for making that happen. Really, truly. I took a photo. I have a photo of my first child, Gillian, holding a little banner. I was at a Sierra Club meeting in, I don't know, it was 2012, I think, saying, you know, no more trapping on state lands. And I can't believe that it took so long for us to make this legislation, you know, possible. But I'm grateful for everything that you guys have done to do that. I guess I will say this, that I want to do whatever I can to support our animal community. I'm not trying to be cagey, but I'm super grateful to be one of the sponsors of the excellent legislation that we will have next year. And I love, you know, when my brain is not too scrambled, you know, I really love jokes around this legislation on cage-free hens. So keep them coming, send them to me. And I'm sorry, I'm such a dork, but I'm really glad to be supporting that. And I will really do anything that I can to support the legislation that is coming up that Animal Protection Voters in New Mexico has going on. You can count on me. Oh, I was trying to make a pun there, but I can't think of anything left. It's all, sorry, I'm spending too much time thinking about how to make this funny. But thank you guys. I'm here for y'all. And I want to just give a shout out to someone who is listening. We've got an old school animal rights activist in the crowd there. One of my closest friends that I have gotten the pleasure to know in the last year, Tammy Feeblecorn. I love you. I love you, girl. Thank you for being here. And you can count on me. That's what I got. Thanks, Jess.
That's so wonderful, Representative Ortez. And for those of you listening who are wondering, yes, those egg puns were completely intentional. And and it's just it's going to be one of the ways that we get through working on this legislation and have a little fun with it.
Well, can I just when I just want to give another quick shout out to all of the horse rescue folks, all around New Mexico. There's a photo that's circulating around. It was on Las Cruces newspaper with my two daughters on. We were at the horse sanctuary here locally, Equine Spirit Sanctuary. I've been going there with my daughters for 10 years, and I love what we can do here in New Mexico when we have the funding. Horse rescue and horse therapy programs are so essential for our horses, but also for our people. So I will continue to support that. So thanks. Just wanted to give a quick shout out.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you for the reminder that you, along with Senator McKenna, but like way back in the old days, were part of the original grassroots group of people trying to do something about the awful traps, snares, and poisons on public land. So, I mean, just how wonderful that both of you have grown out of such engagement within your community and activism, and now you're both serving in the state legislature, and we are so lucky to have the two of you, where we don't have to convince you to care about animals. That's your starting point, and then we figure out, well, how do we do it pragmatically, logistically, within the system that we're working in. So Senator McKenna, would love to hear from you as well about your thoughts about animal issues and things that people can do to get involved in this in the legislative sessions.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Representative Ortez, for your words of inspiration and wisdom. And I have to say, looking at Forgotten Shrimp, the film on Forgotten Chimps, it gets me very mad, and it also gets me sad because we're allowing this to happen. It's still tolerated in this state, in this country, and it should not be. And I really hope that with the retiring of, I think it's Dr. Francis Collins, that we get some new leadership and enlightenment. And I'm really proud to help Noelle during my day job, because that's where I get to, I'm a staff member for Representative Melanie Stansberry, and she cares a great deal about what's happening in Alamogordo. So Jessica, yeah, your first question, why is it important to talk to legislators? It is so important, and I have to credit APNM and the Sierra Club for teaching me as a citizen lobbyist how to lobby effectively. I went to all of those complimentary trainings, and it's through, for instance, the Sierra Club meeting at O'Neill's in Albuquerque that I learned about a coyote killing contest that was going to be happening in Los Lunas. And so the very next day, I showed up and was part of many people that were standing in front of the storefront that was sponsoring this barbaric event. And I remember it was biting cold. And I remember standing across the street, and I remember members, supportive members of the contest coming out of the storefront, and they were brandishing weapons and really quite literally intimidating my fellow volunteers by standing on the same side of the street and claiming we were denying them the right to hunt, and saying some really awful things. So that's when I met Guy and Liz DeSherry, and I hope they're with us today. But we were just galvanized, I think, that day going home, that we're going to put an end to this. And there are so many wonderful volunteers that joined in with us. Joseph Newman and Judy Paulson, who sadly has passed away. And of course, APNM and all the volunteers, Jessica, Lisa, Laura. So yeah, that took me back a bit, but I'm so fortunate that I can tell that kind of a story, because it helps share with you why I'm here sitting in this seat in room 218 of the Roundhouse. So it is important to talk to us. And I was talking to a colleague yesterday about a related matter, but he did tell me that, gosh, I'm looking forward to convening the meetings next week, but it's so important that constituents and those who want to talk about legislation, that they do so early in the year and not when a bill's being heard. And so I really took that to heart, because early on, I was one of those who would come to committee meetings hoping to influence legislators and their vote. And many times their mind is already made up. Now that I don't say that to dissuade those of you who are planning to testify in this session whatsoever, but I say it for your planning purposes. As a matter of fact, he added, we should be talked to probably in the summer and the fall. Much like when New Mexico's budget is being prepared, I found out it's happening in the summer, and it's so important to go to those meetings. So yeah, talk to your legislators, do it early, and be a professional pest. And what I mean by that is don't give up, don't get upset if your email or your phone call does not get answered right away. Many times we're juggling quite a few responsibilities, and we so appreciate being reminded, and we appreciate your compassion about how we're trying to serve you. So I talked about who taught me how to be a good advocate, and why I'm in for the long haul, and what inspires me to help our fellow sentient beings is that I view, and this is my teachings as I grew up as an Indigenous person from Nambe Pueblo. My mom taught us, you respect the dirt, you respect rocks. I mean, they all support who we are as human beings. And if anything, we as the animal on the earth that has the largest brain, we should know better and be champions for animals and stewards, true stewardship for animals. And so that's why I do it. I am really pleased to comment that Jessica and I we had a really good meeting with Senator Woods and New Mexico Horse Council, and also the New Mexico Livestock Board about the wild horse management bill that Senator Woods and I championed last year. We decided it best not to proceed with working on it this year, but to continue our conversations with other stakeholders, make sure we have the language that everybody is pleased with, compromise, obviously, and then introduce it in 2023. But meanwhile, and I just learned about this today, we got our Senate Finance Committee, we got our junior money. And so on the floor, I asked my colleagues to please consider donating to the Horse Rescue Shelter Fund. I always mess up those words. But anyway, that would really help our various horse sanctuaries around the state while we get the legislation through next year. I really want to work hard, and so that we get it through next year. So does Senator Woods. He's been absolutely wonderful to work with in the chamber. But anyway, I'm mentioning this, the junior money, because the senators are going to get $300,000 for recurring appropriations and $300,000 for non-recurring appropriations. And then the kicker is each item has to be a minimum of $50,000. So about an hour ago, I did ask my fellow colleagues to please consider some of their junior money for the Horse Shelter Rescue Fund. And I think lastly, Jessica, I just want to mention one more thing, is I've been very sensitive to dogs that are still tethered in the state. And I worked with Angela Stell at New Mexico NM Dog last year. And she gave me some great coaching on going up to folks who have tethered dogs in their yards. So I'm all in trying to figure out how can we stop tethering in New Mexico. And so with that, Jessica, I'm going to turn the mic back over because I don't want to mess up your agenda.
You couldn't possibly mess up any agenda. Thank you so much, Senator and Representative. I just, again, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you both for the people that you are and the energy and the compassion that you bring to these issues and so many issues in the state legislature. I'm going to start working through some slides just to talk about the state legislative session and some of the issues that we're working on over the next couple of years. Would be glad to have you two stick around for the remainder of the hour and maybe even help answer questions at the end. But just so you know, we all know that you're very busy right now. We're three days into the legislative session. So if you do have to drop off, no worries there. Okay. Oh, yes, Representative Ortez.
I know this isn't like dialing for dollars, but I have taken the challenge, Senator McKenna, and I am going1to talk to my colleagues on the House floor tomorrow to drum up some money. We got 180,000 to spend for recurring and 180 for non-recurring projects. So I am going to commit some of my minimum $50,000 junior money, and I will be asking folks on the House floor to do the same.
Yay! All right. Wow. So everyone attending, you're hearing this now for the first time. We've already got commitments to allocate more money again to the Horse Shelter Rescue Fund this year, which, let me tell you, is so needed. I know there's at least one person in the audience who represents a horse shelter, and the money that was allocated from last year's appropriation, which we'll talk about shortly, it was allocated based on looking at the shelter's work in the year 2020 and the first pandemic year where everyone took a really hard hit. But we've now finished up a full 2021 year where the shelters continued to provide just urgent life-saving services for communities. And the more support that we can get from the state, especially recurring support that these shelters can rely on year after year, would be amazing. So thank you both so much. Wow, that's really incredible. So, what these two legislators have just talked about, I mean, we're working within the legislative session. So the legislature goes into session every year. On an every other year basis, it's either 30 days or 60 days. So you might take note that we are currently just a few days into the short 30-day session. There's also a limit on what can be considered during these short sessions. So if you're familiar with our work, animal protection voters work, and you're wondering, where's your full list of priority policy bills that you're working on? Because of the limitations of these short sessions, we're really focusing on the budgetary and funding issues this year. And we're, as Senator McKenna said, we have been doing and will be continued to do a lot of the pre-work leading up to the long session, 60 days long, in 2023. And that's when anything goes in terms of subject matter. Now, it's important to know that in New Mexico, we have a very special legislature where, and it's often referred to as a citizen legislature, where none of our legislators are getting paid to do this work. You'll hear a lot of people, probably, me included, that really we probably should have a professional legislature at this point, given just the depth and the breadth of all of the challenges facing the state of New Mexico. But this is what we're working with now. So really, Representative Ortez, Senator McKenna, they are volunteers doing this very, very difficult work. And it's helpful to keep that in mind when you're, forming relationships with your legislators and trying to get involved in this process. Unlike in Congress, these legislators don't have staff that really help them with research and any of the other work that they're doing to prepare and advocate for legislation. So they really do rely on the people around them, including people with expertise that live in their districts or around the state. And every single one of us in New Mexico has one person in the Senate for us and one person in the State House of Representatives for us. So some of the state legislative goals that I'm going to mention here, these are just some top highlights. It does not include everything because that would probably be a weekend-long seminar. We don't want to keep you here that long. But I just wanted to highlight a few of the things that you'll probably be hearing from us a lot about. So as you have been hearing, there is this issue of our state's licensed horse shelters, horse rescues. There's currently 10 of them that serve the entire state. They serve the areas that they live in, taking in homeless horses. Many of them take in owner surrenders, and many of them take in animals from the livestock board that have been seized either for, running around as strays, or maybe they've been seized from abuse cases. And so these shelters take care of hundreds of horses throughout the year. Unlike a lot of our dog and cat shelters, many of them are connected with the county or the municipality that you live in. And then there are tax dollars that go to help support that, to keep it running, because they're really providing a service not only to save the lives of these animals to the best of their ability, but it's also, a community health issue, a public health issue, trying to make sure that we're not overrun with stray dogs and cats, right? Horse shelters do not have that kind of regular governmental support. And so that's what we're trying to work towards, because these are really amazing community services that these nonprofit organizations are providing. So we're going to be advocating, last year, so this year we are definitely advocating for recurring funds. So this would be something that would be put into place this year and automatically be included in the following years. It could still be stripped out, but at least it's starting from that point of it's going to be the default in the budget. Last year, for the first time since the creation of the Horse Shelter Rescue Fund, there was a major state appropriation that was made, a one-time appropriation, and it was from this junior money that Senator McKenna and Representative Ortez referred to. If you've heard a lot about how the state has a lot of funds to spend, from various revenue sources, that's what this is about. There's sort of like an extra, maybe unexpected chunk of money, and they, rather than putting that into the main budget, there's this junior budget that's created. So you'll hear about junior money, and every legislator is given a little portion of that money to allocate how they see fit. And so it could be any number of projects and priorities that legislator sees. Last year, we had 3 legislators who very graciously and compassionately dedicated a part of their junior money towards the Horse Shelter Rescue Fund. So Senator Carrie Hamlin, Representative Nathan Small, and our Representative Kristina Ortez here with us today, each put in the minimum $50,000, which, by the way, was a big chunk of the total amount too. So it's not like they were short shrifting the Horse Shelter Rescue Fund. It was very monumental. This helped horse shelters in a big way. Senator McKenna last year wanted to put some money towards this as well, but had already pre-committed to other projects. And so we're very grateful that she's able to commit early to this one, because I was late in asking her last year. I'll take the blame for that. So what else are we working on? Looking towards the long session. Currently, Most eggs in our grocery stores come from hens that are kept in battery cages, but there's a movement in the Western region to transition to cage-free facilities, and this is supported by the regional egg industry here. It's supported by major grocers and retailers. This is the direction that really our country is going, and it's just about setting the right stage so that the economic benefits are there too, and that there are guaranteed humane aspects to what these hens experience. It's not a perfect life for these hens. They're still, kept in indoors, and it could be crowded conditions, but they certainly have more space than when they are kept their entire lives in these battery cages. They have space to walk around, stretch their wings. They can do their natural behaviors like perching and dust bathing and laying their eggs in nests. And Representative Ortez, along with Representative Linda Serrato, are lined up to co-sponsor this bill next year. And the passage of this bill, just to put it into perspective, would mean that 2 million hens in this region whose eggs are sold in New Mexico will be moved out of battery cages into a cage-free facility. So 2 million hens' lives will be bettered. We are also working towards at last making animal sexual abuse illegal in the state of New Mexico. We are one of only 2 states where bestiality is still not a crime. It's a very difficult issue, and it's also tied up with the fact that many of the offenders are also caught up in child sexual abuse and child pornography and other really horrible things. I do want to give a special shout out, if she's still here, Tammy Feeblecorn, who was mentioned. She's amazing woman, newly elected Albuquerque City Councilor, and also has headed up this group in New Mexico called Positive Links for many years. She has specialized in the issues and the link between human abuse and animal abuse, and she is our partner in this legislative effort. So I just want to give a shout out to Tammy and her group, to Councilor Feeblecorn, as it were. Just quickly, there are some common misconceptions about this issue. I just want to maybe mention that, I won't read the slide, but this is a real problem in New Mexico, and it is a serious problem that impacts both animals and people. And it's more common than we think. Quick warning, I'm going to show some imagery of a Craigslist ad where someone was soliciting for sex with a horse. It's not graphic, but you might find it disturbing. So this was an ad that we were alerted to in October of 2020. And the person who alerted us had also contacted the poster of this ad to say, what is this about? The poster made it very clear that he was seeking an animal for sexual abuse. When we alerted the appropriate authorities to this, they said, obviously, there's nothing that they could do. They couldn't even investigate because soliciting for sex with an animal is not a crime. So we're going to try to change that. We don't have legislative sponsors lined up yet, although we have had a lot of really positive conversations with interested legislators. And finally, we are working with Senator McKenna and Senator Pat Woods as well to try to find this common ground to fix our broken system for how we are very poorly managing wild horses in our state. And it's detrimental to the horses, it's detrimental to the land. There has been so much conflict in the communities where some of these horses reside. And so we're trying to seek good science-based solutions. The biggest key to this is humane fertility control. We know that it's more, using the PZP vaccine is more effective, less expensive, and more supported than roundups and removals. So that is one of the foundational elements of what we're moving towards. So there's so much more. If you want to know more, like really go in depth on any of what I just talked about or any other issues, I'd love it if you would just put it in the chat, and maybe that will help me figure out when could we do like a dedicated webinar on any one of these issues in the future, if you really want to dig into that. But we have a lot of plans. So this photo is of a group of us at the 2020 Animal Protection Lobby Day, which I can't believe was the last time that all of us were able to get together in person, because the COVID-19 pandemic set in shortly after the end of this legislative session. And I really miss you all. But gratefully, there are still some ways for all of us to get involved and make our voices heard at the state legislature. So one note specific to the pandemic, last year in 2020, there was no one from the public allowed in the Capitol building. This year, they are allowing people in the Capitol building. There is a requirement that you are vaccinated and boosted, or have a negative COVID PCR test within the previous 48 hours. And they are requiring masks worn inside the building. But if you're not interested in going in person to the building, that's okay, because the same remote Zoom access to the committee hearings that were in place last year are still happening this year too. So you can attend committee hearings and still make your voices heard there without going to the building in person. So just a few quick tips and links on where to go in order to get access to the legislative process. The legislature's website is nmlegis.gov. When you go to that website, if you click on what's happening at the top there, that will get you to this webpage where you will see links to the House and Senate floor schedules and House and Senate committee schedules. When you click on the links to the committee schedules, that's where you will find the Zoom links that you can click on in order to attend the committee hearings. And typically, depending on the committee and the chair, they might ask for members of the public, the audience, to register your support or opposition to a bill by voting in a poll. And then there's also some ability to give verbal testimony as well. So this is a great web page to visit, and they will update it daily, sometimes multiple times a day. You can also click on webcast at the top. So if you want to watch what's going on the floor or in any of the committees, but you're not planning on participating, you can just watch it on the webcast. So if you go there, you can get access to the webcasts. They also maintain recordings of past floor sessions and committee hearings. So if you want to watch something that happened previously, you can do that too by going into the calendar and selecting the date and the committee or the session that you want to watch. And then if you don't know who your legislators are, remember at the state level, you have one representative and one senator. So you can click on legislators and find my legislator. There's a few different ways that you can go about finding out who represents you. I typically recommend the first step is to search by your address, because that's what dictates whether you're in someone's House or Senate district where they represent those constituents. So that's a really easy way to find out who represents you. And those are the legislators that you should be contacting to let them know how you feel about animal protection issues and any of the bills, memorials, or resolutions that have been introduced this year. So what exactly can you do when you're getting involved in this process? At this point, I will pass it along to Paige Ryan, our government affairs manager, and she's going to walk you through some of the tactics and tools at your disposal.
Thanks, Jessica. As Jessica mentioned, my name is Paige and I'm the Government Affairs Manager. And one of the absolutely amazing, incredible, best parts of my job is that I get to work with, collaborate with, and amplify the voices of our grassroots advocates. We have a lot of tools in our toolbox, powerful tools like Jessica and Noelle, that work, throughout the year to pass humane legislation. But one of the most powerful tools that we have is actually you and your voice. And legislators can hear all day long that we think, humane legislation is a priority. But what may indeed tip the scales is when they hear that their constituents think that it's a priority as well. So finding a way to make your voice heard, and Jessica mentioned a couple, but one thing you can do is you can meet with, or you can write, you can call your legislators. As always, be informed, be courteous, and just articulate what is important to you. And you can do this at the state level, you can do this at the federal level. So just simply letting them know what you think is a wonderful way to go. At the state level, you can attend legislative committee hearings and you can give testimony. When the legislature is in session, bills are often referred to committee. And when they hold those committee hearings, you can have an opportunity to give testimony. Sometimes they will poll the audience just to see, what position they take on a bill. So that's something you can do. Maybe make a brief oral statement. Another thing, and we will, we work on this quite a bit, is to engage people to write letters to the editor. It's just a terrific way to keep animal issues alive and in the public discourse. You can share an opinion, you can be persuasive. So that's just a great way to reach out into your community and keep these issues top of mind. And then another great way of just staying informed is to sign up for our APV email list. We won't let you miss anything important. So just if you sign up, you'll always be aware of the issues that we're working on and other issues that are kind of in the zeitgeist. And also you can make phone calls to activate fellow advocates. We periodically will host phone banks where our volunteers will call our other supporters, other animal-friendly advocates, and let them know what's going on. Maybe encourage them to show up for a vote or to contact their legislators or help activate them to make their voices heard as well. And if you've heard anything that Noelle or Jessica have been talking about today that you would love to see come to fruition, be it Chimps to Sanctuary or a ban on bestiality or the Horse Shelter Rescue Fund, I encourage you to get involved, because your participation really could be the thing that makes the difference.
All right. I just wanted to thank everybody. I wanted to thank Jessica and Noelle and Paige, State Representative Kristina Ortez, and State Senator Brenda McKenna for being here, for sharing this information. This was so valuable and interesting, as well as gives everybody a chance to know what they can do to get involved. And with that, have a wonderful rest of your day.